Consciousness is shifting. Here we are in 2025, taking our consciousness to the next level. And how are we doing that? We're going from the 3D to the 5D, higher consciousness. But what does that mean? What does elevated consciousness, elevated awareness even mean? And how do we as human beings attain these higher states of unconsciousness? Consciousness, not unconsciousness. Enlightenment, peace, joy, love. These are higher, elevated emotional states, right? This scale of consciousness comes from the work of David R. Hawkins, and he talks about the different vibratory states that your body is in, your being is in, associated with these different emotions. Because what is an emotion? It is energy in motion, right? So we are these energetic beings. We are energetic beings. We exist on this third dimension, 3D, physically, right? But we are not confined to 3 dimensions spiritually, mentally, right? Our emotions show us this. We've seen this time and time again from the monks and the yogis meditating in the mountains and ascending to higher realms of consciousness, attaining enlightenment, right? But how do we make this practical into like regular life? Like, you probably got a 9-to-5 job, you got a family, you're living at home. I'm filming this video in my parents' living room, right? So let's make it real. Let's make it make sense, right? So these are the lower emotions, right? These are the 3D emotions, right? Most of us humans on planet Earth are living in 3D from ego-based consciousness, right? Ego-based consciousness means that we're not thinking expanded. We're not thinking beyond ourself, because the ego is living in the confines of our brain. We're not thinking beyond ourself, right? So the lowest of these emotions be grief, shame, guilt, all the way at the bottom. They're constricting. They make us feel less than, right? And then we come up. Fear, desire, anger. Fear is a will to live. So fear is a higher emotion than guilt or shame. Shame makes you feel nothing. Fear means that you're alive. You're trying to stay alive. Desire is the fact that you want something. You're thinking of yourself, but at the same time, you're trying to create something. Anger, it's passion, rooted, right? Pride and courage is where we make that shift to that higher consciousness, right? Courage is where we make that shift, because courage is where we become selfless, right? Courage is where we become selfless. We have courage in ourselves. We go from saying, poor me, to I can do this, right? I deserve this. This is the positive self-talk, right? So pride and courage are the last of those lower vibrational emotions. And these lower vibrational emotions are associated with the chakras, the lower chakras, right? Your solar plexus, your sacral, and your root chakra are associated with these lower emotions. And when you're living in a lower 3D ego-based conscious state, your lower chakras are going to be activated. You're going to be very of this material world. Now, where does that shift when you start thinking selflessly, right? That's where we have these higher emotional states. Look at this. We've got neutrality. This is where you go from the poor me to I can do this. Look at me. Right? That's where the shift goes from courage into neutrality. Neutrality is I am okay with where I am, right? It's okay. It's not great, but I'm okay with it, right? Willingness is the willingness to create, willingness to put yourself in harm's way, willingness to go out into the world and actually live. Acceptance, right? Acceptance is saying, I accept what's coming to me. I accept it. Even to the next one, we got love. And that's where the big shift happens, right? Because these emotional states are associated in between here, in between that third energy center, your solar plexus, and your heart. At your heart, love leads the way. And love is how you access these higher dimensions of consciousness, these elevated states of consciousness, where creativity comes from, where wisdom comes from, where authentic expression and communication, right? Or joy and bliss and peace, gratitude. That's where the shift happens. Here we got love, baby. Oh, goodness gracious, right? So what does that mean? What does that mean to make that shift, that jump into the higher dimensions, right? So how is joy any different than shame or guilt? How is peace any different than anger, right? It has to do with your energy in motion. It has to do with your vibration, right? So here we come over here to this side of the board. You're probably saying, what's this vibration, right? This line right in the middle here is presence, right? This line in the middle indicates how often you are present. If you ever read any spiritual book, they talk about this moment. Think about Be Here Now by Ram Dass, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Think about all of the Buddhist texts and the Hindu texts that you've ever read. It's all about this moment. Think about all professional athletes. They get in flow and nothing else exists. They're in this present moment. That is presence, right? And that's where these higher emotional states exist. The higher emotional states exist when you're more frequently in the present moment. So how do we get there, right? And what does it mean to be there? So when we see here, right, we see enlightenment, right? Oh my goodness, these enlightened gurus and Christ, the Buddha, right? What is that? What is that? It means that these beings found a sense of divine presence where they did not falter off of presence. That's why your vibration is how often you oscillate from presence, right? So when you're operating in guilt, right? Poor me, oh me, right? Me, oh mine, I can't believe I'm a victim of the world. And you're not very present. You don't come back to center very often. You allow yourself to move back and forth. Oh, poor me, right? But then, what about when you're in joy or you're in bliss? When you're they say time flies when you're having fun, because it does, because you're more often in that present moment. I think to me going to Costa Rica in 2023, I spent a month in Costa Rica with my girlfriend, and time flew. Time moved differently there because I was so often in joy, right? And what happens in joy? I am appreciating the world around me. I'm telling my significant other that I love her. I'm feeling grateful for where my feet are. And look, those actions are making me oscillate on the present moment more often. Thus, my emotional state, my vibrational state is higher, right? So the more often that you're in that moment, the more you notice, the more aware you are, because higher consciousness is synonymous with elevated awareness, right? So the more you understand emotional intelligence, the more you become spiritually aware, because they bleed into each other. By understanding your own emotions and how to utilize and alchemize your own emotions, you can create higher dimensions of awareness, higher elevated states of consciousness for yourself, right? So we've got to understand how to move up this path. This is a map. It's the map of consciousness for a reason, because it teaches us how to get here. How to get to that fifth dimensional level of consciousness, out of ego-based consciousness. So if you're stuck in ego-based consciousness, you're saying, how do I get unstuck? How do I break free from the matrix? Oh, Corey, tell me how to break free from the matrix. I'm going to tell you right now. You start with gratitude, because gratitude takes you where you want to go, right? You say thank you for what's happening. You say thank you and it quite literally negates these negative emotions. You say, if you're feeling super guilty that you put your dog down and you're super upset about it and you're bummed out about it, you can't stop thinking about it, like I was guilty about it, but I said thank you because I'll never do that again in the future, right? I shift my belief and I go from here, to willingness, to setting up myself for the future because of that gratitude. So rather than feeling in guilt, I'm taking the experience, I'm learning from it, and I'm transmuting, I'm alchemizing my emotions into a positive emotion. Because our emotions, at the end of the day, are not categorized by these labels. Our emotions are simply energy, right? It's energy, and these are simply the labels that we're putting on that energy. So we, as human beings, have the ability to transmute that energy into whatever energy we want. Think about it like this. People fall in love, right? People fall in love and, oh my God, the world is so blissed out, but then they get attached to that love. And then what happens? They go from living in this world where they're so grateful and appreciative and they're holding hands and sitting on park benches to they break up and then they're angry and they're shameful of why they broke up. Maybe they cheated on their girlfriend, they wanted more, or they're guilty for the relationship they got in. They feel fear because they don't know if they're ever gonna find love ever again, right? And we just saw how quickly this elevated state dropped into a three-dimensional ego-based state. It's like, it happens like that, right? Now that's an example of how you can drop down. Today we're talking about moving up. So where do we start? Where do we start? We start with gratitude. I'm gonna write it right here, right? Gratitude. Say thank you, right? And affirm yourself. There's different empowering affirmations associated with these different emotions that'll help you consciously move up them. And we can dive into that in another video. But I'm telling you, you're gonna go from here, from ego-based consciousness to Christ consciousness, elevated states of awareness where you're creative and you're joyous and you're blissful and you're in love with the world so easily. It's honestly, it happens super quick, and that's the spiritual awakening process. So hopefully you like my art, and hopefully you're gonna go click subscribe because we're gonna be creating videos like this on this lovely whiteboard that I just got. So I love you for watching. So thank you. Hopefully this made great sense, because it makes sense to me, because we're going from 3D to the 5D.